Well, hello everybody. It's Memorial Day 2023. It's a day that we honor all those people that died for us to have a free country. We'll probably talk about that a little bit today, but first let me introduce myself. My name is Regan Forston, and I am a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm specializing in a process that's with the Newton Institute, and that's what gets me with Natasha here, because it's the spiritual side of hypnotherapy, where we use hypnosis to help people go beyond the physical to actually experience the afterlife. We have a process through the Newton Institute, which I'm certified with, called Life Between Lives. And what I do with clients is help them achieve a deep state of trance, which almost everybody can reach with a little bit of patience sometimes. But in that state, a person expands their awareness to the afterlife. So it's kind of like having a near-death experience without having the death part, as I kind of jokingly say. So, we've had about 70,000 people do it, and imagine yourself if you could spend a couple hours over there meeting your guide, going before a council of elders that will answer any questions you have, seeing loved ones that have passed on. It's absolutely life-changing and amazing. And here today with Natasha and I, we're a good complement to each other because she does it in a little different way. So we're two modalities that get you the same information that you need to have. And I have a regular hypnotherapy practice also, and I like, if anybody's watching this in Zoom, specializing in post-traumatic stress, fears, phobias, anything to do with anxiety, depression. And we have some amazing modalities now that help people turn their lives around. So always help to do that. So Natasha, tell them a little bit about you and yourself, please, and then we'll talk about our topic for today.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Natasha Venter, and I am one who really loves it's my life calling, my soul calling for many lifetimes, actually, to help people go through the emotions, the stress, the 3D world, grief, whatever it is, past lives, future lives in a way, because sometimes that kind of helps us out a little bit to know kind of what does our future self want us to know. Sometimes I've asked a friend or two a couple of times, what would your future self want to tell you now? And it's amazing what your future self would tell you to do.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you negotiate these dances? And I call it a dance of life. That's why we call it the dance of the soul, because our soul goes from one lifetime to another lifetime if it so chooses. And it's all about collecting energy, collecting knowings, collecting wisdom, collecting understandings of who we are as a divine soul. And so I love to support people bringing that forward. And I'm a multi-life intuitive, energy seer, spiritual counselor. I really bring in the greater good, and I believe in a lot of different things. So I hold no judgment towards that. So if I can support you in your dance of just even find your spirituality, because many of us are really plummeting through a lot of negativity, and how do we gain our footing? And it's through our spirituality, in my understanding. Many do find spirituality, but it's not about religion, it's about spirituality. So today's show is going to be about love, relationships, and how do we receive and how do we give? Because a lot of us have a hard time receiving, and in love. We talked last week, Regan and I talked last week about love, and that how do we negotiate love? And it was a little bit interesting of a conversation. And then
Mm-hmm.
on Wednesday I talked about relationships, and I got a feedback that it resonated with a couple people. And so I thought, today that the calling was to do love, relationships, and how do we receive and how do we give? Because not everybody knows how to give and not everybody knows how to receive. And it's a very interesting application of life.
It really
It's a
is.
very, and how do we do that? Because I know on Memorial Day and Labor Day and a lot of those types of Veterans Day, we're here to honor, but sometimes our people who work to keep us safe don't know how to receive even a little bit of thank you. How many times do we even not even understand how to say thank you? And
Mhm.
all that kind of thing. So it's a really an interesting place to be. And I'm grateful that Regan, you decided to be here on Memorial Day, and I'm grateful that we
Mhm.
can do this show today, even though it is a holiday. But yet, this is about hello, Veronica. She says hello, friends.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
there she is.
yeah. So it's a gift that thank you, Veronica. We do consider you a friend. I
Yeah,
consider you a deep friend.
me too.
Uh, but Regan knows less of you than I do. But here we go with this dance of how do we give, receive in relationships, and just finding that love and it's a big thing. It's a big
Yeah.
thing.
So first, people watching, try to identify yourself. Which is easier, giving love or receiving love? We don't give that much thought sometimes, but it seems that certain types are better at giving and certain types are better at receiving. Me, it's harder for me to receive than to get. I can give easily, it
Mhm.
seems to me, but when someone tries to give back, I'm getting a lot better at it. Especially, um, you know, I went to a workshop recently by this very spiritual person, and he was talking about, we've all kind of known this or heard this, but when somebody offers you something, um, it's always what's Veronica say, giving for me. Yeah, me too, Veronica. Like I can give and give and give all day, but when I just feel uncomfortable sometimes when people, try to receive. But the thing is if you refuse a gift from somebody when they're trying to give you something, in a sense, you're not giving them the chance to experience the giving, you know. So it's like if you have a child that comes up and has a little um, thing they came home from school and painted a little picture of mom and dad and or whatever that they have, when they give it to you, there's such joy they have of giving this little thing that they made for you, and it demands your full attention for them to get the joy and feel that
Mhm.
joy of receiving. I think the worst thing a parent can do sometimes is, a person just their child comes home, hands them this, and the parent's busy with something, and the parent doesn't acknowledge it or just sets it over, doesn't say anything, that way, and the child is hurt by that.
Mhm.
You being teacher with small children, a lot of times, I think do you see that when they make something, they're going to take it home, that they're excited to show and to give
Yes,
that to their parents?
they are. They are. It's really an interesting place to be because, like the other day, I was given a picture, you know, but it was late start Wednesday. I was there. I was telling the kids, "Hey, if you don't want your picture that you just drew, make sure that you do something with it. Either put it in your backpack or you can even throw it away if you want to." And so here comes a kid. "Hey, Mrs. Venter, I made this for you," and I'm like going,
uh,
"You don't want to put it away, do you?" And because I know this child and I know at the last minute, she just quite couldn't throw it away,
mhm,
um, but she didn't want it either, so she was in this quandary, and it was kind of it was an interesting place. I did receive it, and I tried to be respectful. "Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it," and, but I'm also rushing to get the kid, when you got 15 kids that wanna go out and they're all waiting for that one kid, it's like, come on, we got to get going. Let's do this. So it's one of those things that you kind of, I try to be careful about when I receive something. "Oh, thank
mhm,
you. That's what I needed today," or that kind of stuff, because you can make that impact. But while you were saying that about, because a lot of us, I would say probably, I'm just throwing this number out there. I don't know the numbers of it, but energetically, it feels almost like 90% are givers and 10% are takers are takers.
mhm,
Did I include the word receivers?
mm,
Okay, let me change this number here. because I'm getting 85% are givers, 10% are takers, and then there's that small percent that actually can receive.
Wow. So it is harder for most people to receive than to give.
Yeah, and that's I was getting those numbers down, and the first numbers I gave you were kind of
I
just a
could
quick
believe that.
observation, but that's kind of the energetic feel that I get. Can you
Wow.
imagine if so many of us are giving and nobody's receiving, how empty our buckets are? Our energetic
Yeah.
buckets, our energy field buckets, our I can do it again tomorrow. I can do it again tomorrow. I can do it again tomorrow. Because if we don't receive somehow, if we're not able to receive in a loving way, how can we negotiate what we're going to be doing in the future?
So if there's so
Question.
many of us givers and not so many receivers, what happens to all the giving? You know, I mean, it just goes by the wayside, or people don't acknowledge the receiving, or um, I think in a relationship, it's really important to be a giver, but I mean, super important to acknowledge when someone does something kind for you to receive.
Mhm.
I know in the relationship I'm in now, it's pretty balanced that way, and it's wonderful. Because it's almost like, and then it just leads to more giving and more receiving and more giving and more receiving, and it just climb that beautiful ladder.
Mhm.
So I've had to. I know there's been a few times when I'm trying to think of the example, but I know it happened in the last few weeks where somebody was going to give me something, and I really either didn't need it or it wasn't that important to me. But then I thought, again about um, this seminar that I went to talking about how important that is. So I made a point of just accepting it graciously,
Mhm.
whatever it was, and it felt good to do that, um, that way. So
But something like that, that's an interesting place to be because, we do receive things from people,
yeah.
you know, and it's not necessarily that it's good or bad that we take it, but many times it is wise to take it. But what I have observed is many times when I'm given something, I receive it, I hold it for a little bit, but then it ends up going to the right or home.
Oh,
The person who is really needing it.
yeah.
And it's
Hmm.
like, okay, that's why I received it. And yes, it was to give the giver a feeling of, okay, I actually paid for, I felt like I could pay somebody back, right? Or I wanted to give something, but then, it's that receiving, but it's doing it with grace because a lot of us kind of go, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, uh, type of thing. And so with that it is about, I feel like sometimes when I'm ready to receive something, I have to, in a way, unzip myself and say, here I am. I can receive it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Because we have so much protection up that sometimes, we don't know how to receive because we have so much protection up.
Hmm. Well,
Mhm.
actually, just come to think of it now, when we allow somebody to give us something, if we allow ourselves to receive, by us allowing ourselves to receive, we're actually giving the opportunity for the
Mhm.
other person to give. So it's kind of, it's like the giving and receiving is like one complete circle,
Yeah, it is.
complete thing in itself.
It's a breath in, breath out. It's that the tide going in, the tide going out, because the tide is actually coming in at the same time the tide is going, or
Yeah.
the wave is coming in at the same time the wave is going out, right? That's why we
Hmm.
get the waves, is because it's going back on itself. So it is, the ocean is going, always giving back to itself.
Well, there's that saying, it's always better to give than to receive. And I know what they mean by that, but really it should be, it's just as good to give as, and just as good to receive. I
Yes,
mean, good to give and receive, kind of equal that way. But I know what they mean,
exactly.
but it's just to give, because a lot of times we don't give because of our selfishness that we have. Like we have something we know somebody would benefit by, but we go, oh no, I think I think I want to keep that,
Mm-hmm.
I've been pretty good with a number of things that I have that I found when I was doing the garage cleaning. And well, one of the things I think about is all these books that I've read. Now, I've already read them, and somehow they're like my treasures, that
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, but, there's somebody out there that's not been able to read this book. So wouldn't it be better to give that so that somebody could be a gift to someone when it's just going to sit there on my shelf for 30 years, you know?
Yes.
So I like it when people do that book sharing. Like I was in a neighborhood in Tucson recently, and I was walking down, taking a walk out in the desert there on this one street, and it was so cool as they had this little wooden thing built, and it was the neighborhood where people would put books to share. So when
Mm-hmm.
people are on their walks with their dogs, they could swap books and different things. And I thought, wow, that's a very nice thing. And then I started to notice that in other neighborhoods in different parts of the country, where neighborhoods have these little kiosks or something that someone's built where they, share books and everything, which is good.
Yeah, and that's that. Sometimes it's easy for us to receive that kind of thing. Like, oh, here's a book, or here's food at the food bank, or here's food, sitting out at a place. But when we're talking about love, a lot of us struggle with feeling or understanding that love, and how do we you know, do you have an understanding of how we can receive love a little bit better? Because it is about being vulnerable. And,
Mm-hmm.
I have an understanding on how to receive love. And actually, now that I understand it, I realize how much sometimes I need it. And sometimes it isn't the love of, let's say, you know, um, someone just running to each other and collapsing it. But it's that sometimes I feel like I need that quiet love, that whisper that just someone comes up and just hugs you slowly, because those are the things that kind of can help us negotiate. A lot of the energies that we're going through is just those quiet hugs that, you know, I love doing those kinds of things because that's one way that people sometimes can receive is when I hug someone. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a vulnerable place, but at the same time, it's an acceptance. People can accept hugs. It's kind of in their mind, because that saying there, we've grown up with it. It's better to give than to receive. Well,
Mm-hmm.
no, our inner battery, our inner knowings, need that fuel, the love to fill us back up again. Because if we don't have that love, then it's amazing how we just start feeling depleted. And I think that's the fine line between, being an energy vampire. There's that saying of being an energy vampire out there, because somebody is like, they need to receive. They absolutely need to receive. It's all they can do to receive, and it's like, how do you negotiate an energy vampire at the same time wanting to give? It's a fine line. And you know energy vampires are takers. They don't receive, they take. I
Yeah,
need
there's a
you to do this,
difference.
I need you to do that,
Yeah.
I need, and that's not that. You can give for a little while, but someone can become very passive aggressive when you're around somebody who's a energy taker, an energy vampire is the wording is.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, uh, I think the hardest reason people have, or one of the hardest reasons people have in accepting things, is because of their self worth that they have.
Mhm.
Like they don't feel, uh, qualified in a sense to receive these good things. I guess there's one thing being humble, but there's another thing being that you feel so bad about yourself that even if someone tries to give you something, that you can't receive it because you don't feel worthy,
Mhm.
worthy of that. Um,
Exactly. Well, no, understanding like the five languages of love, to go to something that is um kind of like a clinical study in a way. That there's different types of ways that we like to receive.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's physical touch. So for me, hugs are a way for me to receive. And if I don't get enough of that kind of interactions, then I start feeling depleted, right?
Yeah.
But there's a difference. I can tell you when I hug someone who's like, gimme, 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 and someone who's like, oh, this is a blessing. Thank you.
Yeah. Matter of fact, that's one of, if you're in a relationship and you don't know your partner's language of love, yeah, you're not stepping up to plate and being the best partner you could be. You know, it's like so many times. Let's say you have a couple where the woman uh, is acts of service. You know, in other words, that's how when people do acts of service for her, that's how she feels wanted and cared for. And you just keep, you know, and the man says, well, I'm buying her gifts every week. You know, she doesn't appreciate him or something. I don't know why she doesn't love me, you know, because he's giving her the wrong, you know, using the wrong, he doesn't understand her language, in other
Mm-hmm.
words. So let me
Exactly.
think of the five gifts again. There's acts of service, physical touch, um, compliments, or wait a minute. What are the five
Yeah,
languages?
one of
I,
it, let me look it up here.
because I'm
Um,
thinking,
Yeah, and Paula, thank you for coming, Paula.
oh,
Today's topic is a little bit of a combination of the last couple shows. So Monday was about love, my show on Wednesday was about relationships, and today's about love and or receiving and giving, being able to give, being able to receive at the same time, kind of a combination in relationships and love. So let me go back to here. Got a lot of windows open here. I need to. Okay, five
yeah.
languages of love.
And it also helps too. You know, we talk about the Enneagram sometimes. Anybody that's watching this, you do a free Enneagram test. It's ENNEAGRAM, gram, just like it sounds. And there's a eclectic energies is one of the better ones on there. And you can do two free tests. It'll tell you uh, whether you're from a 1 to a 9. There's 9 variants of human softwares, as I call it, with that. And it really is helpful if you have you and your partner take it both, so that you can see where your differences are and where you come together easily and where your differences are going to be.
Mhm.
It's really extremely helpful. It's just like, and then knowing their acts of love. I mean, I think in relationship, there's so many things you can do that I would say as a counselor with a young couple, like occasionally I'll have a young couple come to me for pre-marriage counseling, or they're in a relationship and they just want to know because they really care about each other. And just like you and I being coaches, Natasha, there's practical things you can have them do, and then there's like spiritual things you can have them do
Mhm.
if they really want to build a good relationship. So many people they get into this, you know, it's just this attraction thing, and they want to just all they're thinking about is sex and
Mhm.
all that. And then when they gets down to the nitty gritty, you know, after that wears off, it's like they have nowhere to go, you know, and they wonder why they
Ex
don't get along or anything because they've not discussed, they've not taken care of any of that stuff. I mean, it should, you know, from day one, you need to know who's taking out the trash, you know, because that's that right off the bat. If you don't know whose responsibility that is and don't have it worked out, that's a big bone of, or you know, who's doing the dishes, you know,
exactly, the
who's
bone of
they,
contentment, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you're
So the 5 languages of love
okay,
is words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving of gifts, quality time, and physical touch.
yeah, okay,
So
yeah,
and that's the thing is like I know that like I know someone who's acts of service, right? Is part of it. But at the same time though, it depends on what acts of service you do, depends on if sometimes that's even right, you know, because
right,
if the person that you're doing the acts of service with has a hard time receiving.
yeah,
And so when you know, I'm sitting here watching this going, well, you're, having the conversation between two people. Well, you're not able to receive what actually is being done for you. And so it's kind of like hitting a wall all the time. And so, negotiating those interesting stories and dances and the wisdoms and all those different things. It's, if I can give anybody anything, is it's start practicing to receive the more better feelings, you know? For me, like, I even, I know that I'm not like everybody, but, sometimes when I walk by a plant and I touch the plant, that helps me feel something different,
Hmm.
and I receive something from Mother Nature, or the angels, or something like that. So, you know, going into those acts of service, even for ourselves, because mine is physical touch a little bit, and how do I get that? By actually going out there and refilling myself up. And that's the thing, is that we can't always look for somebody else to do it. We need to do it ourselves. And even in a coupleship, if you're in a coupleship, best friends or anything, and if they're not doing it for you, then reach out and get it, you know, in a
Yeah.
safer way. Like for me, words of affirmation, actually, communication is one of mine, and also I have a couple of them in there, and you can have 1, 2, 3 that are pretty close. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting place. And so sometimes I know that my spouse, after a long day, he doesn't have those words in him, right? So what I'm finding is that if I can find those words of affirmations through friendships and through other conversations, it's amazing to
Hmm.
process it in a fuller way, so that I can receive knowledge, so I can receive understanding, and I can receive those, like, okay, I'm on the righter path, and it is about receiving the love, because it's all about the bigger picture, and it's not a straight line, and it's not a one-way doorway, it's that breath in, breath out.
Hmm. I think one of the easiest things to not accept sometimes is when someone's offering you a compliment, just something as simple as that.
Mhm.
Um, and I know I used to always, like other people that I know, someone would give me a compliment and I would say something like, "Oh, you should have seen me a few hours ago," or blah 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 blah, or you know, I don't know. We
Mhm.
just you can tell there's that deflection sometimes that people have when
Exactly.
they're trying to give them a compliment. Although too, see, there's the four agreements in that book. It's also a thing saying, uh, if someone gives you a compliment, it's it's like, why are us human beings so freaking complicated? You know, why can't we just But imagine how boring it would be, in a sense that
Exactly,
everybody
exactly,
is exactly the
exactly.
same.
I know
It would be that way.
I was with a couple this weekend, and it was, they live on, we live close to the Canadian border, and they live over in Canada. So it's not, an hour away, but, we have the border to deal with. So it's not just an hour away to see these
Yeah,
wonderful friends of ours. And, we sat down, and, if we lived closer, we would have conversations and just being
nice.
moments, and it was interesting to like, you know like the husband of the other couple said, men and women, the cruel trick of life is we do not communicate well. you know
Yeah,
I can say a sentence and the man will interpret it one way, and I meant it a total different way. A man can say a certain sentence, he said, and a woman would interpret it one way, and that's not how the man meant it.
I
And it's
know.
like,
Yeah,
how do we receive something when we don't even hear it the same way?
yeah.
you
Hmm.
know and it's about communication. Keep talking if you can, and receive it. But I would say, to this whole receiving thing, if we can just get in the practice of saying thank you. The
Yeah.
first thing when we receive is thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, and I know it's hard to do sometimes. It's not easy to do, but if we can get in the practice of just saying thank you. And it's not a oh thanks. No, it's a
Hmm.
thank you. You know, that that's when we can start saying, okay, because it's not, we got to practice out of the deflections, like you were saying,
Yeah. Well, and it's good too. A lot of times when you love somebody, you do a lot of things without even expecting a thank you. But it's nice to, like, if you do these little random acts of kindness with your mate uh, during the day. It's just like, I was going golfing the other day, and it's like, Patty made me a little peanut butter sandwich to take with me. Well, she didn't have to do that or anything. It's kind of thing. But I went, wow, that's really cool. I said thanks.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's good when you see these little things that someone does. It's nice to acknowledge to the
Hmm.
other person that you're seeing what they're doing, because I think one thing that hurts sometimes is it's like on the Enneagram, twos are called the caregivers, and they give, 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 give all the time. So a two would never let you get out the door without a sandwich and without a drink and a napkin to go with it and everything that it takes.
Hmm.
Because they're just thinking of you all the time, thinking of your needs and everything. And with twos, it really helps them to once in a while to get acknowledgement for all their hard work, because they're just give, 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 giving.
And then
But
that's when passive aggressiveness can come in.
yes, it does. That's what twos do. A lot of times they get passive aggressive because nobody's
They're
giving
always
back to them.
giving, and then they don't get anything back. And
Yeah,
that's the thing about recognizing, witnessing. I don't really feel like that. I even use the word in my vocabulary. My vocabulary can be pretty simple, but those simple words, I've witnessed you for many years doing your work. And you may not know how much you've done, but I have seen it. I have witnessed it. You have come a long ways, and people just kind of go, you witnessed me? You saw
yeah,
me. You truly saw me. And
yeah,
I can tell you that here again, flipping that coin over, that I witness a lot of people, but sometimes the people that are closest to me, don't always see me, because, you get going in life, you forget to see people that are your closest to, and those are sometimes the people that we need to be witnessed, or they want to be witnessed in a way. Doesn't have to mean that you always have your microscope on them, but it's just that once in a while, just, thank you for working hard. I witness you working hard for us.
yeah,
Thank you. And that kind of thing. And there again, it's not necessarily that it's up to us if they receive it, but at least we can put it out there in the ethers, you know?
yeah,
And sometimes after we start doing that several times, then they start being able to receive it because we wear them down a little bit, right?
hmm
But, and there's that saying, kill them with kindness. Yeah. Well, I don't want to kill them, but yet I want to kill that barrier. I want to transform that barrier. I don't like to kill anything. I like to transform things. So, but transforming that old pattern of not receiving, because, like, even I love my father-in-law, and he's passed now, and I hold him with great love and respect and honor. But he did tell me one time, why do you tell your kids good job? He came from the generation of hardship, you know, and he was a couple years older than you, Regan, and so that generation of of and you were there too with it.
hmm
It's like you know you know that hand of hardship. Let me get the board for you to teach you how to do it right. you know and we weren't. Why would we want to receive that? And I noticed that with me, with my even my kids, I would tell them when they were doing a good job, because it was that practice of, this isn't feeling right to me, this is feeling right to me. And I tell kids that in the play, at school all the time. Look at what you're doing, you're persevering through this, good job.
yeah,
And they kind of look at me like with a side eye, type of thing, because I don't remember hearing that. But it's an interesting place. There's one time with one of the kids at school, and the teachers came up to me and said, "Do you know what so-and-so did? I had to email that parent and tell him something that I was just so proud of him to do," and she's a teaser, type of thing. And as this kid's sitting here smirking, because it's like, he got something that he didn't, he persevered and he was witnessed, right? And so with that we got to practice it, and if we can help the young feel it, especially that 20-year-old group, because they're not hearing a lot of positive things about themselves. They're hearing a lot of, this generation is lazy, this generation is
Yeah, they are getting a bad rap.
Yeah. They're getting a really bad rap, and there's some really good people, good beings in this. There's, it's amazing how the few can rot in the pot for the good, and the rotten apples, but it is about persevering, and this generation is meant to teach us that we don't have to do it the same old way.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? It seems like each generation, it's
a teacher.
At least when I look, each generation brings in a new set of rules. And the people that are already here and established want to fight against those rules instead of being open to looking at them and go, hey, which one of those rules are actually better than what we did?
Yes.
That way.
But that's about receiving the teachings that the universe is here to teach us.
Yeah.
So there's another form of receiving. Sometimes we don't receive messages from the universe. Like today, I had an amazing 2 deer came and laid in my front yard, and I was showing Regan the pictures earlier.
Yeah.
And this one deer, I looked out my window, and she was like staring. I mean, literally staring at my house. And it was like, and I was not really moving around a lot in my house, so it wasn't like I was creating a bunch of noise. And she was just staring, and I was like, oh, I got to receive this. And I was in tears. Actually, I made a post out of it, and you're going to hear it in my voice, that, because it was so that I had to receive it. And, I just was doing this weekend was a memorial for someone who passed. My husband played golf with him, and we went up and spent time in Canada with some good friends and had a memorial. And well, of course, me being the medium I am, who's sitting there as his ashes are riding around in a cart too, because his kids were there, playing the last game of the dad. The dad, the kid, one kid was playing with the golf clubs of the dad. And then the ashes were carried around in the cart, and the kid would bring them out at every tee and every hole, every
wow.
At every hole, and sorry, it was big.
Wow. Yeah.
And everybody was laughing. Everybody was just having a great time. And of course, dear Johnny was sitting here with me talking, the whole time. And, once I gave messages to the sons and that kind of stuff, the energy lightened up for me. But it was just an interesting moment to be. And, it's all about receiving this huge message that Johnny was, he was joyful. He was, he kept the team together. He kept the friends together. And what a moment that was to witness. There's that word again. What Johnny truly wanted, which was us to come together and be.
Yeah.
To be friends, to be joyous, and what a man he was.
It's just, last night when we had friends over, it was like there was a number of couples that weren't able to show up. And so it was just like 8 of us that ended up being there. And one was a couple with a little girl who's 4 years old. And then our niece here has a little 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most beautiful thing to witness, right? As this little cute little blonde comes in, 4 years old. Immediately she sees the 2-year-old and just forget us adults, just goes right over to them. And it's like they're their own tribe,
Mm-hmm.
They were their own tribe. So not more than 3 or 4 minutes later, I look over and she's helping the 2-year-old put on his shoes, sitting him down and getting his shoe, and he's just allowing her, receiving that, to do that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the thing that we realize in all this is the work that you and I do, Natasha, is children are just, they're old souls in little bodies, you
Yes.
know. And so when you think of it that way, it's like we're all equal in that sense. They're teaching us something by playing that, and we're teaching them. It's not
Hallelujah.
it's not us. We are so much more spiritual than them. But the couple told me that when they're arguing and their daughter sees that, before it's sometime either right after the argument or that time tonight, that little 4-year-old goes over, grabs his hand, grabs the mom's hand, and takes them and puts their hands together.
Oh.
They said it just, it humbles them. And
Uh-huh.
she has a habit of doing that. Sometimes she'll do it every day for a while. She'll grab them, put their hands together. It's like keeping, like the little one is just saying, okay, even though you guys have arguments and you have things like this, you are one. Come on, you got to
Yep.
love each other. Wow. It was like, and just seeing her little eyes and everything, you could just see this old soul in there,
But
teaching them
that's
about love.
that's the whole point. Like I always say this, eldership isn't age bound. You just
Yeah.
explained what an elder is. Someone who can comes out of the situation and sees a bigger moment to
Yeah.
happen.
Hmm.
Coming together, teaching a little one, a little one teaching a little one how to put on shoes, you
Yeah.
know, that it doesn't have to be a parent's job.
Yeah.
It could be anybody. And then the elders, bringing two people together who are arguing. How do we do that? And, that's about being. And it's like me getting this deer, and the intentful look that she had, or,
Yeah.
in the moment, it was just so like, thank you, Johnny, for saying be gentle with yourself. Thank you,
Hmm.
universe, for saying you are doing amazing work. Be gentle with who you are, as they were laying in the shade, taking in the moment, sniffing in the air. It was just such a moment of teaching, just to say, take care of who you are today. And I know today I was a little bit headachy, and the energy seemed very heavy and just awkward today, and it was hard to get motivated, and it just, it was just about being in the moment, and I rolled with it. I did what I could do with it. And that's the thing about receiving, going back to that receiving. How do we receive messages from the universe? Many of us just keep bullying ourselves forward and not saying, wait a minute, stop, breathe, come back, take care of the moment, do what you need to do, you know, take care of who you are. It's okay. You can do it, and it's about that, those cares to do, because we have to. Sometimes we don't have somebody who can give us what we need.
Yeah. Growing up, just because of the ideology I was taught when I was young, you at least I interpreted it to be that God would only show himself to saints, to the priests, to this, the priests, the saints, the nuns, people that were more spiritual than me. And and took me till later in life, or even doing this work, that I realized, that our guides, doesn't matter who you are or whatever, everybody has a guide, and somebody there to help you. But a lot of times we don't hear them because we have that blocked off, like, oh, how, God, wouldn't work a miracle for me. you know um, I was on the one of my clients I did a thing with a few weeks ago, and she's listening to, I did it on Zoom. It was great, actually. And then I was the first one that I recorded. I pushed the recorder for Zoom and recorded the whole video and everything. And then I had to convert that. It took about an hour for the computer to convert that to a file. And then I sent that to her, and she was watching it, and she said, wow, this is so good. She says, it's more real to me now when I look at myself in
Mhm.
trance and having this experience, and I see my expressions, how I acted. She says, added a whole nother dimension to what was happening to her when she was just had her eyes closed and she was seeing what she was seeing. She says, Regan, it felt so much more real to me. So
Cool.
yeah, that was really kind of. But she was talking about how how these little, she's been lucky and have these little miracles would happen in her life. Like when she got in an accident, car accident, and was injured bad, her two children were bad. These two people showed up out of nowhere that helped her because she was all disoriented, helped her get to the hospital. And when she got to the hospital and they had the two kids, they signed them in because they were injured. And then she said, well, to the nurse, like, I got to thank those two men that, that helped the children come in. And they go, what two men? There wasn't any two men, you know? And it was just like, they had just, she was just said, this must have been two angels that manifested just to help her. And I know for some people listening, it might sound crazy, but I've heard so many stories about angels and that manifesting themselves in times of trouble. And they were there, like they were here, and then you look and they're gone, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of help. Now, we've done 70,000 cases of people go on the other side. Every single one of them has had a guide. So
Yep.
what do we think from the research? Well, we think from doing research in that way, that this is the way of the world, that we all
Mm-hmm.
have these guides. And hey, Paula.
Yeah.
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 And it would be nice sometimes, people have listeners we have, if they have, because here on the show, you can talk about that stuff, where
Yes,
some people would think
exactly.
they're kind of crazy, but
We
I,
don't.
I, I remember I went to some training. This man, he was a chiropractor, and he would go to people's homes and do the chiropractic up in Minnesota. He was late to an appointment, and it just snowed. He was going over this bridge, and had the black ice, on there, and he was in a GTO. Back then it was all souped up and everything. So he was racing across, lost control, and just as he sees the steel thing that he's going to beam, that he's going to hit head on,
The
going about
still
60
greater type
miles
of
an
thing.
hour, he screamed out. He just said, Angel Gabriel, help me. That's the last thing you remember. He crashed in, totally demolished the car, and he walked out without a scratch, and he said he just knows, he could just feel that presence or something of this invisible force that kept him from the impact, that way.
Well, and that again is the giving and the receiving,
Yeah.
that and I want to say when we receive that, everybody here who's watching, I understand you watch these shows and you are one that receives in a better way. But there is those times when somebody is very bullish about how they receive. Well, I deserved it, and but those are the energy takers, and it's like, how do we know when to give and when to receive?
Yeah.
And we have to do it when it feels more right. It feels more pure about it.
Yeah.
And I know that you know a friend of ours that got this whole thing organized for the tournament. It was considered a tournament. There was 5 groups of us, 5 groups of 4 players, and so it was a lot of people that were playing at one time, and him getting everybody together and stuff like that. You know, I really wanted him to receive the thank you. I mean, I know that people said thank you for doing this and that kind of stuff, but when you receive that thank you from the dear friend that you were honoring, so it's like, I hope that this wonderful man received the gratitude that was given to him for holding that space.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so, and aren't they ultimately the same? Can you clarify a little bit with that, Paula, please?
Yeah. What does she mean by
Yeah, because I
what is
want to
it? What
clarify
is the
that,
same?
because giving and receiving is like a tide, tied in, tied out. Things are the same, but I don't want to assume what you meant by that.
Yeah,
So,
like we were discussing a little earlier, it's like as we're discussing today, it's part of a circle. To
yeah.
have a complete circle, you have the
Oh, giving
giving
and
and
receiving.
receiving.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It
and
is, it is the same circle, but at the same time, though, it is, we have to get on the we have to get let's say if it is a merry-go-round, right? Giving and receiving is a merry-go-round. It is the same thing, right? But it is actually stepping in and going, ah, thank you, you know, and it's that fullity of receiving, and that is the divine love, you know. It's like when the dragonfly landed on my husband's shoulder right after a toast was given for the gentleman. You know, it was like, what a magical moment to receive. And, you know, my husband just he walked away because he just had a hard time receiving that moment, you know, because it was, you know, I said, honey, you just had you know, a dragonfly on your shoulder. And I don't know if he knows what it means because, you know, he's not totally in my world, but oh, so she says, yeah, Paul, that was before I got here. Yes, probably it
Oh,
was because we try to circle back around in
but
our conversation
good
a little bit.
observation.
So for
Yeah, Paula,
newcomers to come in, yeah.
she's with it. Oh, by the way, you said Dragonfly. That's a really good movie to watch. If anybody has called Dragonfly with Kevin Costner.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's about, you know, his wife passes away and he keeps seeing these dragonflies, and somehow he knows it's her. But it's just the ending is beautiful in this
Is it?
movie, and it's all about him having the sense that she's contacting him. It's something he needs to do, that she's telling him he needs to do something, and it always shows up with these dragonflies, and everybody thinks he's crazy, but he just follows that. And
Uh-huh.
you know, it's got an ending which is, it's just so heartfelt
Yeah, Veronica
about
says
that.
it's a wonderful movie. And Paula says here, I figured receiving is giving yourself something. Yes,
Hey,
it
that's a
is.
good point about being
Yeah.
able to give yourself a gift, to be able to receive from yourself,
Yeah,
and
well,
to actually,
receiving the joy that
yeah,
you are, and then we were talking about that with kids, how they receive the joy when they give. Yes, we totally get that, but what we're talking about though is too is that if like, you know, Regan, you were saying about being a number two, that you're always giving and you know, if you I've witnessed many people, I'm gonna say this, that are givers. They're true loving givers. They're caregivers of this world. They're totally giving. That sometimes when we don't get something, a recognition, a witnessing, and we don't receive that recognition of witnessing, being witnessed of that, that it is hard for us to keep going. Our battery get, that's why we have so many people with adrenaline fatigue, or our
hmm
pituitaries are shut down, or our thyroids are messed up, or, you know, all these scenarios that are going on is because we don't get witnessed. And then when we do get witnessed, we go, oh, thank you. You know,
hmm
that breath in of, oh, thank you. Because, you know, we can give and receive from that giving. I do that all the time. You know, my joy for giving is beyond. But I can also tell you that there's sometimes where I need to have my five languages of love, one of them given back to me to fill in that bucket. And I'm not trying to be selfish about it, but it's just that, you know, if you're, it's like a gas tank. You have to put some gas back into it. You know, you have to put something back into yourself to get to negotiate this world that we're in right now. And there's a lot of negative out there, and that negativity is like a sponge and it wants to take the good out of us. And
yeah,
how do we, you know, we can give, but like we were saying at the very beginning, you know, like I got the information, what was it, 85% of us are givers, you know, 10% of us are takers, and then 5% of us are receivers. You know, it's like we need to balance it out to be able to receive in that intention that the universe is wanting us to get, you know, to
yeah,
fill our bucket back up, to fill our energy field back up, because we have a lot of negative that's draining us faster than us being able to have that balance. I feel in many ways, I don't want to put it on anybody, but I'm just putting it out there that be careful of how we are, we don't listen to ourselves about what we needed to do. Like to me, I received a lot for myself today because I was kind of really headachy, and I really needed to take a moment today to, I didn't have my other job. I could just kind of take a breath and I could do my work and do it. So I received myself some compassion,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, though, it's about that story of how do we have compassion for ourselves
A, a,
and
a,
and
mhm.
and receive it.
A good example, I think, of a good relationship is the goal to work towards is that in the morning when the husband wakes up and he looks over and sees his bride, and the first thing he thinks of is, wow, what can I do today for her? And then she
Mhm.
wakes up and sees him and she's thinking the same thing. And
Yes.
then you have this giving and receiving in this spiritual, relationship dance. And that's when everything goes good, because neither of them wants for anything when each other is giving and each other is receiving,
Mhm.
that way. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing
Well,
to
and
witness.
that's that, we can go together and get through what we're doing because we fill up each other's buckets, right? And
Yeah.
Paula, thank you. Oh, uh, she was saying this first. Um, I totally get it, but then putting expectations on others' actions. With my journey, I feel my guides and ancestors have been providing the witnesses. Yes, and I so concur. I feel the same way. I totally feel the same way. Um, and then, which is fairly new, she says, "Good job, Paula." Yes, I'm gonna say though that, um, like for me, I'm gonna give an example, and we're getting kind of close to time here. Is that when my husband was drinking, he fell into the narcissistic tendencies, and he was a pretty, he six pack of double tall bushes every night, and sometimes he would buy two six packs, right? So sometimes it was a little bit more, and sometimes it was just the six pack. But he was pretty drunk because it was almost like drinking 12 beers a night, right? And so he was passed out by
Hmm.
7 o'clock, and he got off work at 6. So he downed them. And so with his narcissistic attitude, that it didn't matter how much I gave him. His energy was so sucking that I needed in a part of me, because of how loving I am, to have a comparison of love back to me, because,
Hmm.
and it wasn't about judgment. It was just I was getting so depleted, and it is because it is about expectations. And that's the thing, and we're trying to not talk about what expectations are about receiving. It's about thank you. It's about that thank you. And it's about the giving. And because in relationships, we do have different perceptions. We do have different languages, and we do have different ways we brought up. And how can we come together in more of a breath in, breath out? Like I was saying earlier, it's like the tide. The tide is going, the tide is coming in at the same time it's going out, with the way the waves double back
Hmm.
on itself. So how can we give and receive at the same time? And it's about being in the moment, but making sure that when we're giving to somebody, we give to somebody who can be more, a witnessing of it is helpful to it being, oh, I you did see how I'm giving you. Thank you. It is that breath. And I want people to feel like that they're being appreciated, because we all are trying to do better, in some fashion.
Hmm.
So it's a thing. It's a thing.
Like for me, I'm in my middle 70s now, and I feel like I'm kind of getting the hang of it, about receiving. Still a little hard for me, and just when I think it is easy, then something will happen and I'll realize, oh, that was a little tough receiving. But it's good to feel that, you can feel that improvement, getting better
Mhm.
that way. um, so um, one last point I was going to bring up, I was going to say earlier, especially because you're around children all the time in the school there. It seems to me that children are kind of as a general rule, born selfish, and they have to learn to be selfless.
Yes.
I'm just watching them on the playground where they just, no, it's mine, no, it's mine, and they don't want to share, you know.
Hmm.
It's just
Or they take and they receive it in a very negative
they
way.
take it, right. They take it because they want it, and then that's when as teachers and what we need to do, and it seems like as souls, like in a sense there's that um, we're given that, or we have that selfishness in ourselves, and we work lifetime after lifetime learning about giving and about being selfless, that way. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, it would just be interesting to see a 3-year-old child that was just a totally, selfless little person.
Yes.
Um, Although
And
sometimes you,
Paula's saying, like, being waitresses, we can give and give and give and give and give. And
yeah,
it's a fine line because she says, I thank myself for not giving up and changing myself. I almost like filling my own bucket. Good for you. And I do too. That 99% of myself, I fill up my own bucket.
mhm,
Um, and I'm lucky to have a man now, 12 years sober, that, that bucket is starting to be a little bit more witnessed.
yeah,
And then as a server, it's hard. Yes. Um, and
Al,
so I'm hands are I honor you for being a server because it's not always easy, but that's where I try to be kind to those servers. I try to stack my plates up so it's easier for them to carry, and I try to do those things that really support the journey, because giving isn't always, it's not always black and white, and how do we negotiate that? But I think this is a conversation we can keep going and going and
I know.
going, and there's so many different perspectives on it. But if I can invite for anybody to start practicing saying thank you when somebody does something that they think of you for, and how do we receive that, because it is about
Yeah,
intention. It is about, well, I'm not going to receive that because they didn't do everything I wanted them to do. Well, no, receive what they thought about doing.
yeah.
You
We could do a half a show. I think would benefit people on Ho'oponopono.
know.
Or and maybe we could do half the show on Ho'oponopono and the last half on the Four Agreements. You know, wouldn't that be a great show?
That
That
would
way,
be, maybe
I
that's maybe what we can do for the next week's show.
yeah, for it's so it's spelled just like it sounds. Ho'oponopono.
Uh-huh.
It's a great. It's from the mystics from the Hawaiian Islands, and
Hmm.
there's a story behind it that's just amazing and showing
Amazing,
you
isn't
how it
it?
really, really works. Yeah, and it's a way to keep you in that neutral zone all the time with whoever you meet. Anyway,
Yeah, no,
that
that sounds good. Well, we can do that. And Paula says, I'm saying thank you for a safe place to grow, and
oh
and I'm so grateful that you have a safe place to grow, because and that's why I don't watch all podcasts that are spiritual. I pick certain ones, and actually I'm going to be on one that I watch in the middle of June here, which is a blessing, that the dance of this, or no, it's I know what it's called. Vin- Not Vintages After Dark. Oh, do. I know what it's called. Well, I'm gonna be on it, and it will come right after the show is done, right? Because I'm trying to
yeah.
close up the show.
Yeah, I have one coming up too, which is going to be really interesting, and I got to look it up. It's something skeptic, but it's like they invite people like us on their program with things. But uh, let me see what it is here.
I know we both have been
It's
today's. Oh,
busy.
the next level soul is the one I'm,
Oh,
I'm gonna be on in middle of June. Next level
it's like
soul.
metaphysical skeptic or something.
Mm-hmm.
Super nice guy, and it's going to be fun to do. Well, even the Vestiges After Dark. Anybody out there, if you watch Vestiges After Dark, it's just a cool. It's a bishop and a nun and a priest. The the nun and the priest are both ex-police officers, which is interesting. And then they have from Australia, they have a really, really beautiful soul priest, and they answer people's questions about the Bible and different things. But they allow. Natasha's been on there twice. I've been on there 3 times, and they let us talk about other spiritual things.
Modalities, and
And they
they
don't
don't go
judge. They're
hug
just
on it. They're
no.
very open to it.
They're open, and it's very uplifting. They're just great people,
Oh, you were her guest on which show?
You're
Paula
talking
says
to
I
me.
was her guest.
Oh, Paula was on. Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. Cool.
Was on Messages After Dark?
No, I think on the first one that you said.
Oh,
Oh,
the skeptic one.
yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, Paula. Hey, if you watch us next week, I want to know what number you are on.
Fireside.
On the way?
Yes. Oh, Fireside. My friend Jessica does she's a very loving, gifted woman. And I love her so much that she's doing a show called Fireside. And it's where they do the first part on in front of like Instagram and Facebook and that kind of thing, and then later you get into the club, and it's a positive club. It's about building up, it's about doing things and doing great things, and then they go back on Zoom, and then they finish the conversation, and they get into the deep conversations that really
Wow.
can't be vulnerable with on Facebook, and because it's about honoring privacy. And so and she does different Facebook Live. She does it on Facebook Live. And so and then she does other things with this group, classes and different things like that, and it's a very much of a gift. Thank you, Paula, for saying it, because I wanted to say something on it on the show for Jessica. Journeying with Jessica is where you can find out more about that. And
There's so many. I think there's 1 million podcasts right now, I think, or something almost approaching that. It's the world is so different. I watched a 4-part series this week. It was on Hillsong, the Christian church that was going worldwide, and then all the scandals that brought it down. And at one point they had 150,000 people in their going to their churches, and after the big scandal, now they're down to like I think 50,000 or something. They lost about 2/3 in the last 6 months or something because of everything. But the reason that they were able to get through the dysfunction in that church was because of social media, where these organizations that get dysfunction, even though they start out good, and then power comes in there and they get corrupted from the inside. It happens to so many, not just this Christian church. It can happen in any organization, actually. Where that thing to have power takes over, and pretty soon it's about power, not about
the
helping people.
spiritual work.
But these entities are so large, and they control the narrative all the time because they have the power. But once Facebook came along and some people started sharing, and then more people sharing, cat's out of the bag. They can't control the narrative anymore, and that's when all the truth came out. Then they came tumbling down. But it's kind of sad. But again, like I tell people, if it became more like a cult rather than a good Christian church. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean you throw out Christ or that just because you have a few bad apples that go to the dark side.
Exactly. Well, and I watched that, Paula, the the Fireside. Sorry about that. Where my friend Jessica had a person who does the Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono.
Pono, yeah.
It's a tongue twister.
I know it is, and me being dyslexic, or me being headachy today, it's kind of my tongue wants to speak better. So with that, the negotiation of that. And I've actually practiced that many times. When I was over in Hawaii, I got really taught that message. So
Yeah,
so
it's a good tool.
it's a good thing to speak of. But we are like over,
Oh,
and
we're overtime now. Okay, I'll
yeah,
tell
so
again.
I want to honor people who are watching, and I
Yeah,
want to. So next week we can actually talk about the four agreements and the Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono, right? Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
Ho'oponopono. Um, the because I know it. It's just that get that out. So
Yeah.
we can talk about that next week, and then be
Okay.
here. And so please, if you're watching and you know this conversation would be good for somebody, please share it. Please follow. We are live Mondays and Wednesdays at 4 o'clock Pacific time. On Mondays, it's Dance the Soul. On Wednesdays, it's Life Clarifications with Natasha. And when we're going through life and managing, you're very welcome, Paula. Thank you for supporting us. I
Yeah. Thanks,
so
Paula.
am so grateful for you. And thank you again for mentioning Jessica again. Um, so going forward, please know, and if you know somebody who really likes to listen to podcasts, these shows are on podcast, and I load them up right after the my shows. I try to load them right away, Mondays and Wednesday nights. So please follow and like and share, and know that everybody is amazing. So if you can practice anything, practice saying thank you when you're ready, when it's time to receive,
Yeah.
and be willing to know that that is not a selfish act. It is a part of the breath in, the breath out. And please try to give with understanding, without expectations too. It's a gift, and that's how we can build our relationships. It's how we can build our love for one another, because it is about that communication of love and understanding that can get us through a lot.
Yeah.
Get us through a lot. So, Regan, how do people reach you?
Well, visit theafterlife.com. You're going to see videos on there. There's a video of a young lady on there going to the afterlife and back through this process through the Newton Institute. It's a life-changing experience, I have to tell you, because I've done it twice. I think about it every day. You know, I spent over 3 hours, and I wrote a book called 3 Hours, 33 Minutes in Heaven. And it's about the 12 things that I learned in that time there that kind of changed my life to where I look at things so differently now. I got proof that there is an afterlife, for one thing, because I'm always
Mhm.
this, even though I'm a believer, a lot of it was on faith, but now I have faith has turned into knowingness, which is a nice thing. Anyway, it's a process anybody can go through, about 90% successful. It's like a 5 hour process altogether. And it's a life changing thing. But anyway, you can find out all about it on Visit the Afterlife. But also, I love doing traditional therapy with people over Zoom all over the world. If you have, I specialize in people who've had traumas, have PTSD from it. So much of that. So many people have something that's, attached to them that they need to work on. And we have these new modalities now over the last 10, 15 years that work with that incredibly well, so that people can get a sense of normalcy back in their lives again. Also, fears and phobias. Sometimes we can get rid of fears or phobias in, half a session even, and they don't come back again. But yeah, anything having to do with anxiety, emotions, that sort of thing. I use energy psychology, which is highly effective. And there's videos and everything on my website too, Visit the Afterlife. So feel free. Still giving away a book called Reincarnation is Real, about all the current research being done. We've had 70,000 people experience past lives, so we know it's real, but still people want more and more proof, but we have a lot of that now. So anyway, Natasha, what about you?
Well, they can reach me at angelicclarifications.com. You can also email me at natasha at angelicclarifications.com. I so appreciate giving people the grace of moving forward. And I have this modality that I do now where I take you through uh, your back through your life and go into pre-womb, pre-birth moment, and then go back in the DNA. And it's amazing how negotiating through these times where we came from, and then going into past lives, come together at the same time as you bring all that energy forward of healing. it's not about healing our past. It's about making us be able to move forward in our lives. And there's so many things I'm finding in our personal DNA in our past lives that have really stopped us to move forward. It's a fear, it's an anxiety, it's an illness, it's a blanket feeling. We have this blanket feeling over us, and I love to help people do that. And I'm here for mediumship and helping honor those moments that we go through, and just wanting people to know that they're good and safe. I love to support people with that going forward. So you can reach me at angelicclarifications.com, because I'm a multi-life intuitive, a spiritual coach. I am also a medium and a Feng Shui consultant. That's because I see energy as a lot of energy. Whew.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm a little headachy today, because
That's a
I
lot.
was a
Yeah.
little bit of work this weekend.
Hmm.
Loving space, not holding space, but loving space. So please come and watch us again. And thank you for all your
See you next
support,
week.
Veronica and Paula. And we do hope that this does help. So blessings to all. See you on Wednesday with Life Clarifications with Natasha. And then Monday again with Regan at 4
Next
o'clock
Monday.
Pacific time.
Yeah.
Blessings to all. Bye now.
See you next week.